C.S. Lewis, J.R.R. Tolkien, two of the greatest writers in history. Now, I don't know what you know C.S. Lewis from. I'm a big Narnia fan, right? But you also got Screw Tape Letters. These are when you look at the pantheon of great books, C.S. Lewis, J.R.R. Tolkien, I mean, these guys are on Mount Rushmore. Did you know that they were buddies? Did you know they were part of a legendary group called the Inklings? If you didn't, listen to this. So, in college, C.S. Lewis becomes a member of a small circle of poets. And he starts hanging out with other poets. And so the beginnings of this getting in proximity to people who are doing what I'm doing, he kind of begins to hang around with other wordsmiths, if you will. So he's in his first teaching job. And he meets a young guy named Tolkien, J.R.R. Tolkien, which, by the way, Joe, I think I would be much cooler if I had 3 initials in front of my name. Like, I wasn't Ken Coleman, I was J.R.R. Coleman. Like, he didn't have 2, he had 3 initials. I think that's pretty cool. Madison just said it doesn't flow as well. I agree, I'm just saying, I think it's pretty cool when you have not 1 initial or 2 initials as your name, it's 3. We're going to throw another one in there. I digress. So, Lewis meets Tolkien, and they discover a love of Norse mythology. Of all the things they connected on, it was Norse mythology. And so they start hanging out to the point that Tolkien would stop by Lewis's office on Monday mornings for a beer. I told Joe this before the show, and he couldn't believe it. So Tolkien knocks on Lewis's door every Monday morning. Lewis opens the door. It's J.R.R. Tolkien. He goes, "Hey, man, you want to have a pint?" And these guys on Monday mornings are having beers together and conversation. Not just beers, conversation. So it could be coffee, tea for you, whatever it is. Lewis wrote about the experience in one of his personal letters. This comes from Lewis's website, by the way. He says in a letter, "It has also become the custom for Tolkien to drop in on me for a Monday morning glass." This is one of the pleasantest spots in the week. Sometimes we talk English school politics. Sometimes we criticize one another's poems. Other days we drift into theology or the state of the nation. Rarely we fly no higher than bawdy and puns. I'm going to come back to that in a second, that last little line. So fast forward, they just continue to do this Monday morning beer and conversation and really just enjoying each other's company. So then they take it up to a total of 19 guys. And they move it from Monday mornings to Thursday nights, but really late. So I really don't know if they had kids and wives, but I'm going to tell you, as a guy who's been married almost 21 years, I got 3 kids. If I'm hanging out with a bunch of dudes late, it's on a weeknight, it's late. Because we got dogs, homework, what's going on in our lives? Are we ready for the next day, the next week? And then we get the kids to bed, and usually I'm right behind them. But I love this. So I picture these guys tucking the kids in bed, kissing the wife on the head after they said, "Hey, babe, is it okay if I go out tonight?" If they're really good husbands. I mean, that's how it's going to go. At least it is in my house. And they get together, 19 of them. And here's how it would go. They'd all get in the room together. Lewis would make a pot of tea. They'd sit down, and somebody would start reading something that they had written. Can you imagine? Can you imagine being in that group with a Tolkien or a Lewis, and you go, "Hey guys, I wrote this poem yesterday. I kind of want to read it and see what you guys think." And that's what they did. Lewis would read the Screw Tape Letters. Tolkien would read Lord of the Rings, the chapters. As the chapters would be written, he would read them. Can you imagine? You want to talk about vulnerability, but don't forget this. They would coach him, disagree with him, make suggestions, and they'd take it. These Thursday night meetings went on for 22 years. 22 years. Lewis later said about the Inklings, "What I owe them is incalculable. Is any pleasure on earth as great as a circle of friends by a good fire? Now, this is incredible. What do you learn from this? What do you take away from this? The people you hang around with have invaluable influence. It's either good or bad, but you can't put a price on it. Obviously, we want it to be positive. But if you are hanging around people who hold you back, you can't put a cost on how much that's costing you. In lost years, lost learning, lost experience, lost opportunity. Whew. However, if you're like Lewis and Tolkien, you're hanging around people that challenge you, that lift you, that love you, that laugh with you, that laugh at you, for heaven's sakes. He said, these men, their value, their friendship was incalculable. He couldn't put a number on it. Couldn't put a value on it. One of the people I write about in the new book, The Proximity Principle, that you have to be around are peers. I talk about the right people in the right places. Folks, if you put yourself in proximity to people who naturally lift you because they pull you into their orbit because they're living on purpose, they're doing great things with their life, you're going to want to be in that orbit. You're going to want to hang around with them. You're going to want them to speak into you. Who wouldn't want to take your greatest work, your private work that you want to give to the world, and give it to people who are going to critique it, but critique it lovingly and say, hey, it can be better. It needs to be this, it needs to be that. Who are going to add something to it? Here's what we don't know from this article, and here's what we don't know. Although I got to tell you, one day in heaven, I'm going to hunt down Lewis and Tolkien, and I'm going to pull them over under a tree somewhere in heaven, and I picture it being a weeping willow tree by a beautiful body of water, and I'm going to go, I got to know. J.R.R., because I just want to say that. Can you remember when you actually added something to Narnia? Or C.S., how much influence did you have on Lord of the Rings? Because you know they did. So here's the point. If the greatest writers in the world were intentional to spend time around other writers, people who were good at their craft, doing the same thing they were doing for the purposes of fellowship and for the purposes of getting better, then you should be doing it too. So who do you need to be in proximity to? There you go. The history of success.